welcome. Welcome to UniverSoul Women. This is Sherryl Lin.
And I'm Dr. Julie, and we are coming together to ignite radical cultural change.
So today we're going to talk about navigating through the debris. Sounds very dramatic, right? Well, it feels dramatic sometimes, like while we're in it. I was thinking about just recently this spiritual teacher, John of God, got arrested for sexually abusing, 300 plus women. And there was part of me that was, shocked, and then a little bit like not surprised, because these things are coming to light, all of these things that are happening in the world that used to be able to be hidden, like can't be hidden anymore. So how do we manage as we're going through these times, and we're in this in-between time where things are rising up to the surface for us to actually look at and see where, like, it's right in our face, and yet the new models and the changes haven't happened yet. And so how do we navigate through this space where we're not just walking around shell-shocked all the time, or going, oh my God, did you hear of this? And oh my God, this. And we're kind of waiting for this other shoe to drop. So what do you think, Julie?
Well, this is a big topic, because so often we're looking at the news, whether we're on traditional media or we're on social media, we're looking at all of these things in disbelief. What has the President of the United States done next? It's like, it's absurd. It's almost like, I like when you talk about the emperor's clothes. It's like we see this naked emperor and everybody's just like, it's almost like we expect it now. Like we expect the crazy, but it's all in an attempt to really shift and clear. It's like, people are like, is this the new normal? No, this is the breaking down. It's like bringing things from the dark to the light so we can clear it. It's like pulling the veils literally down. So as we're seeing through the veils, as we're like, nothing can hide anymore, the things that have been dark. So I get this impression, I feel like the image of 9/11, when the Twin Towers came down, and the one came down, we saw those images of people running in the streets, and literally this white, gray dust. Do you remember that big cloud? And everybody had it everywhere, and you couldn't see, and they're running and not knowing what is going on, but it looked like a war zone, right? It was. And so like all this debris is there because something came tumbling down. And I'm not saying that that was a good thing, but as a metaphor of our systems and structures breaking down, this icky stuff is really the debris. There's a lot of it. It's in our face. It's everywhere. It's like, so how are we going to navigate through the debris now? So the debris doesn't...
and I'm going to interrupt you because I'm thinking about a friend who actually was there during the cleanup time, and she still has lung problems because of it. And so the other piece is, how do we get it so it doesn't go, so we don't take it into ourselves and, bring it in the debris as we're going through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And to stay in the place of being clear. Like, how do we stay in the conditions to bring forward the goodness? How do we create the conditions to bring forward the creativity and the love and the innate genius that's going to rebuild? So it is a consciousness piece again. So if we stay in the consciousness of separation, where I'm me and I have to preserve myself, or I have to get ahead, or I have to take care of myself, if I'm only thinking about me in my smaller self, separate self, then I'm in a consciousness of self-preservation. So as the whole world's falling down around me, oh my gosh, it's like, what do I do to keep it? What do I do to make it not change? What do I do to save myself? When you can see the tumbling down and the debris as a part of a higher shift in our consciousness, and that literally it's, we no longer choose to live in a world of scarcity, of violence, of fear, then the tumbling down is a really good sign for us of the old. That it's kind of like, it's like we're doing CPR on a dinosaur. You know, it's like there's the dinosaur, the old guard, the old way of being, the old definitions of who we were as humanity that's fighting and, you know, in conflict and scarcity and blah, 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 blah. Why are we doing CPR on a dinosaur? So allowing those systems and structures to come down, then expecting the debris. We can expect it, but we don't have to breathe it in, and we don't have to stir it up. We can navigate around and through in a way that's more healthy. I don't know, what are you thinking? You got that look on your face.
I was just thinking of some examples, you know, some more, you know, in my life examples. And I was thinking about this big change I had a couple years ago where I moved to New York, and how, you know, it really was like everything changed because I literally moved across the country, and yet there was fallout from it. You know, my kids were going through some things at the time, and you know that because I was moving, it changed that dynamic. There, I had stuff in storage, and I couldn't get it all right away because I didn't know where I was going next, and you know, so there was a now I'm someone who actually really enjoys major changes. Like, let's change everything and start again, erase it. And not everyone's like that. Some people are like, oh my God, I could never do that, and just pick up and move. And, but while I was going through it, I think that the key was that I knew there would be those blocks, and there would be things that I'd have to work out, and I didn't know what they were going to be. I didn't fully know, you know, how things were going to happen, or what was going to happen, or how I was going to go back and get my car. You know, I didn't have a car for a while when I first moved. Like I didn't plan it ahead because I was living in this vortex of the unknown. And that is not like a societal norm that we have, being able to just take things as they come. It's like we're big planners, and we, you know, I mean, just even things like you have to have estate planning, and you have to plan for your retirement, and you know, if you're a teacher, you have to have your lesson plans, and if you're, you know, a CEO of a company, you have to have your business plan and your vision and all the, like, we're very used to having everything planned out, which there's, I mean, we need some of that as well. But this going without an instruction manual is very foreign to most of us. And even for me, even though I'm pretty good at it, it still can be very unsettling. And I think one of the reasons that it's like I kind of like that unsettling feeling, because I choose to see it as exciting. And that when you think anything is possible, some people are like, well, anything's possible, oh my God. And I, in general, am like, anything's possible, you know, and I get really excited about it. So I think cultivating that, you know, it doesn't have to be we're all going to hell in a handbasket. That, you know, some people are like, you know, doom and gloom, and the planet's, you know, we've gone too far ecologically, and we've, you know, contributed to this destruction, our own demise. You know, maybe that's a possibility, but I also see that we also can rise up out of that, and that it doesn't have to be that way. So I think that, you know, I don't think it's just optimism. It's like actually living in the unknown and including all possibilities is part of it.
I want to jump in here
Okay.
because when you were talking, a really important piece came through for me. And so I love the idea of all things are possible too. And I don't do radical change like you, like picking up, moving across the country. I haven't had that kind of radical change. But when you were talking, I heard a really important piece. So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot to make a point, but not in a negative way at all.
Okay. Bring it.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Tending to our own debris, the debris we cause, versus navigating through other people's debris. So like when I heard you talking, you were owning that the radical change that you induced in your life had an effect on your loved ones, not just your life, but your loved ones. So how did you tend to the debris and take responsibility for that, for your loved ones, for yourself, versus it's not our job to take care of the debris of other people? And there, you know, we're watching, and we use this as a, you talked about John of God, we've talked about all the stuff that's coming up in government and politics, and, you know, and we've looked at the Me Too together, you and I, of, you know, all this stuff is surfacing and emerging, right? And it's debris of people's consequences of people's actions. So what are we responsible for and what are we not responsible for? It's just a question, and I'm curious about you. Like, how did you take responsibility for the consequences in your relationships with your kids?
So it was hard. It was one of the hardest things I had to do because I knew that it would ultimately be good for them too. But you know, as their mom, they were going through really hard things, and you know, my daughter's very open about her drug addiction, and she had relapsed. But the reality was that I'd been right there, living in the same city with her, and it hadn't helped. Like she still was struggling with drug addiction.
And we need to say both your kids are adult kids.
Yes, they're
When
adults.
you moved, they were adult children. So we're not like, it's not like you had a 12-year-old at home. Okay.
Yeah, no, I didn't move then. So I knew, especially with her, my son, it was, you know, minor things, but you know, he and I are very close, and so he missed me a lot. He was going to miss me a lot. So, but I knew that I couldn't really help her any more than I already had, and it didn't matter whether I lived near her or not. And so I did a combination of things. One, I was very open and honest with them. And it was an interesting thing because I didn't know how long well, when are you coming back? It's like, I don't know. I don't know if or when, or, you know, might move somewhere else. And you're welcome to come with me. Not at that moment, but if you decide wherever I end up that you want to move there, you can, you know, you're welcome to do that too. It's not like I'm not moving away from you. So having those conversations with them and communicating that I knew it would be hard, but that I still love them, and you know, and that really it was being an example of who I've always been, which is someone who really follows their own star, you know, and I have nurtured that in them as well. And my daughter, well, they both said this, but my daughter especially, once she got clean and, you know, she's doing really well now, she said, you know, that was the best thing I could have done because she had to figure it out on her own and help herself to overcome this addiction.
Mm.
But communication was a big part of it. It's like, I know it's going to be hard for you. And but I'm here. Like I'm not going to be physically here, but we'll visit and we'll talk on the phone. And we actually have this little thing where we check in pretty much every day at 11:11. My son started it, and we just say hi. And sometimes we have more of a conversation, but it's just like we're together, you know, and I feel in some ways closer to them than I ever have. So, so that's just that example. But when I look at it, you know, because you presented this, like, how do we take responsibility? And are, you know, the people that are causing the debris, that we're all looking at, like, are they taking responsibility for it? Not always, but a lot of times it's the, you know, the courts are taking, you know, making them take responsibility for it, and you know they're being confronted with, you know, you have to come clean. So yeah, so did that answer your question?
And what just moved was almost like this compelling invitation from the universe to say, change and evolve, or we'll change and evolve for you. Like, take responsibility for your behavior, or the universe is going to take responsibility for you. So when I'm thinking about all this debris, is a lot of people that are so into, again, ego, narcissism, self-preservation, that they're being greedy, they're being violent, they're being sneaky, they're being abusive, whatever that is in that old guard that's being exposed right now, is the world inviting them into their heart, into the collective, to take a larger responsibility for their own, how their actions affect the entire world. I mean, look at corporate greed. Look at corporations polluting the planet. You know, things like that. A huge oil spill in the bay. Like, it's really on a cosmic level that it's time for us to really fully take responsibility, that our thoughts, words, and deeds matter. And it's not okay to be abusive of others. It's not okay to take what's not mine. It's not okay to not give back and serve the greater whole. You know, it's not okay to be self-serving. I become a cancer cell. If all I'm doing is serving myself, I'm a cancer cell on the planet. So it does tie us into this bigger conversation of what is ours to do, and how do we be a part of the change. And part of that is being responsible for our own change. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, as you were talking, I was thinking about you know, in taking responsibility, we you know, we're the planet, you know, the people on the planet, we're raising our vibration, right? And it's kind of happening through us. That's kind of how I see it. Like we're being called to act in different ways, to be kind of a higher mind and a higher heart and a higher frequency. And as we're being called up, anything that isn't matching that, it just like can't exist in that frequency. So something's going to implode, whether we're consciously doing it or not, if we ignore the fact that we're being called to something higher. And I think that that's an important thing to just remember, that anything that's incongruent with the truth of who we as a people are, and then who we are individually, anything that's incongruent, it's got to go. Like there's no, and if we don't address it willingly, it's going to happen anyway. And that's, I feel like, what's happening now. And it's funny, I was talking to, you know, sometimes I work with couples, and you know, I was talking to each person in the couple separately, and I was saying, you know, the most important thing is that there's complete transparency. Like, you can't have you saying one thing over here and you saying one thing over here and have it not be completely transparent. And I think that's we're all being called with that, to that, in our relationships with each other, in our relationships to our systems, that if we're not transparent, if we're trying to hide anything, it's going to come out. It's going to come out eventually. And it's getting harder and harder to sweep things under the rug that have been, we've maybe been able to get away with it in the past. That's not happening now.
I literally know someone that literally sweeps things under the rug. Like literally, they'll sweep under the rug. But I had this vision when you were talking about that it will implode, or it will explode, or it will just naturally fall away. I had this vision of a rocket booster, and the rocket going up, and then everything that it no longer needs in orbit just falls away. But it's got to fall somewhere, but it doesn't have to be as violent as the imploding or the exploding. It could also just naturally break away and fall away and what have you. But if we fight and resist, we're creating more pressure there, and it will become more violent of an implosion or an explosion. And we don't want to explode, endanger others, or implode and endanger ourselves. It's like learning how to just be with this new sense of, I love what were the three things you said? Higher frequency, higher mind, higher heart.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So when we come into alignment with that, yeah, it's very freeing. It's very light. It's very different than the density that we're talking about. A lot of that dense energy is falling away.
It is, and yet there's still the navigation that happens when we're confronted with something that, a spotlight is just shown on something that, has risen up, and we're like, oh, right. We still have to say, okay, so how am I going to respond to this? Am I going to let it sink me and feel like, oh my God, is this just, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience. I know it's really common when like you're feeling emotional about something, but you just are holding it all together, and you know that you have to let the emotion out. But you feel like if you let the anger out that you're feeling, or you let the tears come, you're never going to stop. Like once you start, it's just gonna, and it feels almost like it's gonna destroy you. And so you hold it together, and then it ends up bursting out of you, instead of just allowing it as the emotions come up, as the feelings come up, just let them be what they are. And I think that that's a key to this, to not feeling like powerless over what's happening. And when you see, like, it really, I remember the feeling I had when I heard about that spiritual teacher. I was just like, really, another one. It just felt like with all the priests and the actors being accused, and it was just like more. And I thought, is this ever going to end? Like, there was that feeling like it was never going to end. And it's like, I don't want to hear about it anymore. There was a moment of that too. And then I thought, if we're going to live in the world that, as women, we kind of see this possibility of a nurturing world where we actually are working together, and where people are treating each other with kindness and respect, and women are being treated with kindness and respect by men, and vice versa, then this has to come out. We have to have it all out in the open, and then so that it doesn't keep happening.
Yeah.
And so when I remember that, and then it's like, oh, okay, all right, yes, more. Like, let's see it all so that we can address it and it won't keep happening.
See it all. Welcome the debris. Welcome the debris. So just to pull this all together for our conversation today, because it's an important one, is when I hear you say, oh, not another spiritual teacher, look at all the amazing miracles and healing. And it's like, it's an and both. It's an and both. And so what we see is this polarization in our country right now, especially, where no, this person's good. All these things are here, so this must not be real. Instead of it being, yeah, it's an and both. These things have happened. But what's funny, a couple things. Bill Cosby. I didn't want that to be true about Bill Cosby. You know, I didn't want it to be true, and it was. And I loved him as an actor and a comedian, and I really didn't like that behavior, and it's tragic. You know, it's an and both.
Mhm.
But here's the deeper piece of this debris that just hit me when I heard you saying, yeah, I want it to come. It's got to come up and out so we can clear it. Was just thinking about, first I saw it as pus on a wound. You know, it's like this pus is coming out, the infected matter is coming out. It's gross, but we haven't got to that sticker or that sliver yet.
Mhm.
And until we really go in with intention and consciousness to remove, to create that radical cultural change that we talk about, then that is in there causing this excess of debris everywhere. It's like that pus, that infected matter. It's got to come out. It's got to come out. And it's our ability, it's fighting something that's much deeper. So now's our time to really go in and to consciously create that radical cultural change so that we can stop that flow and move into our right relationship with ourselves, each other, and the planet.
Mm. That's beautiful. Yeah. It's interesting, the idea of the splinter. And I actually think that it would be cool to leave this as a question that we can talk about. What is that splinter? You know,
Mm,
what is represented by that splinter that, you know, once that's removed, then the true healing can, you know, we might not know. We might think it's a particular person or a leader or something like that. Well, we'll remove that. But then there's all these other splinters that, so what is the splinter? What is that? What is the essence of that? I would like to actually leave us with that question, and have our viewers contemplate that, and share with us what you think that is.
nice. A good question. It's a powerful question. So, alrighty, I'm going to muse into that for myself as well. And I encourage you to do the same. And I encourage you to check the box below this video. You'll find so much more about Sherryl Lin and myself, and how to find us, and how to tune into the next episode. So thank you for joining us again today. And remember, we're all in this together. So let's walk this debris hand in hand, and really ask for help when we need it. Can I shine my light on the path for you, Sherryl Lin?
Yes, we can walk together as we have.
Perfect. All righty. Okay. Bye for now.